the work that I started and led came from that same place of I don't have everything and I am not anybody special. However, I do have a voice and, I want to use that to the best of my ability. And it was amazing to see what grew out of that. So I resonate with you guys being able, your focus on ordinary people that have a passion, ordinary people that say, I'm not everything, I don't have everything, but I'm present and I have a small idea because everything begins life in seed form. Everything begins life in seed form. So I love this idea. Never despise the day of small beginnings, they say. And I think that's what you guys are about. And I'm attracted to stuff like that all day long.
Welcome to Love on Record, the podcast from Let's Choose Love, where we amplify stories of everyday heroes, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. In every episode, we sit down with changemakers, neighbors, volunteers, advocates, and people from all walks of life who remind us that love isn't just something that we feel, it is something that we choose each and every day. Through honest conversations, inspiring stories, and moments that restore our faith in humanity, we'll explore how small acts of courage, compassion, and connection can create lasting change. So wherever you're listening from, thanks for joining us. Let's press record on the stories that deserve to be heard. This is Love on Record.
So think for a moment about what you have to give. A lifetime full of lessons.
Hi, I'm Wendy White. I'm the founder of Let's Choose Love and your host for Love on Record. And I am here with our board member, Corey Fenrick. And we are so excited because we have a very, very special guest here to be able to share his story and his inspiration that we hope is going to inspire many of our listeners. So his name is Evan Mawarire, and I'm going to just let him talk and Corey talk because I know they have so much to share, but we're really glad to have you here today.
Wendy and Corey, thank you so much for having me here today. And it really is a pleasure. When Corey and I met and he insisted that I have to have you share your story, I said, okay, let's figure it out. So I'm glad that you guys have made it work.
Of course. It's exciting to have you. And I really do believe that with all heart that our listeners will take so much from what you have to say. Like when I sat and heard you at the Bitcoin conference, which is a little different world, but it left an impact on me from something that's so technology focused and cold to a story of hope, courage, and humility. It really left a mark on me. And I'm so glad that we can bring your story to our movement today. So thank you again for your time, Evan.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm here to serve you guys and just to, as much as I can, give a little bit of some of the lessons from my own work and my own walk into the already amazing work you're doing. I think you guys probably need little input from people like me because you are already making it happen. So I'm learning from you as much as you probably are learning from me. So I'm ready.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Thank you. So I want to get started. So I know your story, and I think Wendy knows your story, but our audience may be new to your story, right? And I think it would be great to just bring them along, right? I know of your crazy epic courage, the journey that you've taken, and I don't want to step into your story. So I would love to just start by you sharing your story with our audience to get them acclimated with who you are and what you bring to the table.
Good. Well, the story in the book, in the title of the book, you mentioned crazy epic courage. It's really a story of how, as a young pastor in Zimbabwe, I began to see the injustice that our people were facing as a nation. We had been under a dictatorship in 2016, actually. That's when I started the movement. But by 2016, Zimbabwe had lived under an intense dictatorship for 36 years, since 1980. And it's a dictatorship that had not only destroyed people's lives physically in terms of people being murdered and killed, but also people's livelihoods being taken away from them. And so there was a destruction of hope. There was a destruction of the internal belief that we were part of bringing change or we were part of moving our own society forward. I'll give you some examples of what caused that. In 2008, Zimbabwe went through the worst economic crash that a lot of people have probably never heard of. But inflation was running at about 236 million%. The largest banknote we had in Zimbabwe at that time was a $100 trillion note. And to give you context in terms of what that could buy you half a loaf of bread. And so this was a very, very difficult time, but it had been happening for years. And it happened again for the next 8 years, from 2008 to 2016, when I finally stood up and said, enough is enough. So how and why did I do this? There were two main reasons why I suddenly decided, as a pastor of a very small church and basically someone who was a nobody, decided, hey, I'm going to speak up and say something about this. First of all, it was very personal to me. My two little children, my two little girls were young at the time, 5 years old and 3 years old. And we had the third one coming. I was failing to put food on the table for them. I was failing to pay for basic services for them, like a nursery service, a daycare service for them. And I wondered to myself, if I'm facing this, I wonder what people who have less means than me are going through.
Yeah.
And that became the basis for me to be able to say, no, I personally cannot fix this on my own. But I do have a job here. My job is to use my voice to say to my fellow citizens, are we okay with just sitting back and letting this carry on? Mm-hmm. Can we not at least say something about it? And the idea at the time was not so much, hey, let's get together, let's start a movement and let's stop this from happening. It was just about saying, can we have the dignity to at least find our voice? Because this is what the struggles of many people across the world are. As much as they may be fighting for, say, clean water or safety in their neighborhoods or a better political system, what people are really fighting for is the dignity to have a voice that can be heard.
Beautiful.
Right? And so for me, that was the start of this. And the start of it was, I was not an elected official. I was not someone with a lot of money or any powerful connections. So I sat down, I remember this clearly, sat down in my church office and I propped up my phone against my Bible and I recorded a 4-minute and 11-second video that became the basis of a movement that I or anyone else never thought could have been built. I never saw it at that point. No one saw it at that point. And that's the beauty with stepping up, to give yourself to something that you feel called to as an individual, to play your small part. The beauty of it is that in its smallness, in its insignificance, you and other people may not see how big it is, but the power of seeds is that on the inside of them are fields and fields and fields and fields of the same produce. And that's where we got to years later. Anyway, I'll fast forward. This little video went viral and began a conversation amongst Zimbabweans on social media. We were not allowed to protest in Zimbabwe against the government without getting permission from the government. And so we began conversations across the different social media platforms. And these conversations then became an idea for actions. And one of those actions was an ambitious action that we planned to do. And that action, we did it on the 4th of July, I believe it was, in 2016. And it was an idea to shut the country down. If you...
I'll hold you just for a second, because I think there's a piece that would be really interesting for our audience to hear before you go into like how that video was used. One, you're talking about the one about the flag, right? Where you shared about the colors of the flag, and we'll share that with our audience too. But one of the things that really inspired me about watching that video, which I think is what helped to make it go viral, is you weren't fighting against anything. You weren't riling. You weren't yelling about what was wrong. It was so clear that you were talking out of love for your country, love for the things that your country has originally stood for, that had meaning to you and meaning to your family. And it was almost like a calling people back to the core of what was best about Zimbabwe. And I think that's so important because it's very much aligned with Let's Choose Love, because we're not about against. You know, I believe that all there is love and fear. And so if we're fear, out of fear comes hate and division and, all those things that are negative. And so what we try to do is call people back to love. And when I watched the video, it just resonated so much with me that you were calling your country back to love of your country, but in the purest form of its ideals and its principles. And that is what launched the movement from my perspective. So I'm curious, I'd love for you to reflect on that just a minute.
Oh, for sure.
Then take off and share a little bit about what it ignited.
Oh, I mean, when you're right, we live in a world where it's easier for people to say what they hate than to say what they love.
Yes.
And this is the big challenge we have today when it comes to finding change makers and people who are willing to bring true change, because few people can articulate what they love and why they love it. And people find it easier, again, especially with social media. It's easier to rant, to throw shade, as they call it. It's easier to be a critic of someone or something than it is to say, what I have is an alternative solution. Or, I have a different view that I think could work. To say, what I think we could work together on is ABC.
Yeah.
That's become something that a lot of people find difficult because it takes work. And here's the thing. Love takes work.
Yes.
It is the easiest thing to say. It is the hardest thing to do.
Right.
A lot of people will say, I love you, I love this, I love this, I love that. But love is the kind of thing where it's not about what you can tell me about it. It's about what you can show me about it.
Right.
Right.
It's about love and action. Words are meaningless. It's about calling people to action, to break through that fear and to stand up for what they believe in a way that is an alternative to what is before, not just railing against, but as she said, creating what it is that you really want and inviting people to be part of co-creation with you. And I think we've lost that so much in our discourse.
There's actually a really interesting story that really stuck with me in Vegas, and it stuck to me today. And I don't want to share your story for you, Yvonne, but it spoke to me that you came back, right? And I'm jumping ahead in your story. You came back to Zimbabwe, even though you were away, safe, running from government tyranny, right? You came back and faced it with your brothers and your countrymen. I would love to hear, well, how does that even start, right? What goes through your mind when you have 3 kids and you're going back to Zimbabwe and risking everything? And what is it like for a father, right? As a father,
right? I'll go back to that statement again. I made that it's not easy. It's work. It takes work. Love is about the selfless giving of yourself so that others can benefit from you without needing to have them to say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're driven by the sense that if I do something for you, I need you to reciprocate that by either saying thank you, or I need you to reciprocate that by electing me into office, or by putting me on a pedestal, or whatever it is, you're going to have a problem. That's not real love, because it's not selfless. And so how we got to that point, and I'll give you a very quick lead up to it, is that we began the process where we were doing these campaigns. Eventually, our first protest, which was the shutdown of Zimbabwe, which we did not think was possible at all, but through a series of actions, it was just unbelievable to watch it unfold. We brought the country to a complete standstill. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking to myself, this would not have been possible had there not been a unity of people coming together to actually, make this happen. But I was then arrested. I was charged with attempting to overthrow the government, which was far from what I was trying to do. They charged me with inciting violence, and they were going to put me away for years. And instead of breaking the movement, it literally bolstered it into another level. And I remember when they were forced to let me go, which was unprecedented, by the way. People gathered in their thousands at the courts demanding my release as when I'd been arrested, it was just unprecedented. I don't have the words to explain how impossible that was up until that point. And so I was released and immediately escaped the country with my family, my 2 daughters, my wife, who was pregnant with our third one.
Oh, no.
Which people always ask me, and they're like, why would you do that? And often I say to people, there is no perfect timing for these things. When something needs to be done, it needs to be done. Mm-hmm. If we have to wait until we have all the money, if we have to wait until we have all the support, if we have to wait until we feel like it, until we're in the right frame of mind or right, whatever we're waiting for, we're never going to get things done when they need to get done. Sometimes the things that need to be done are calling for someone whose plan is not yet finished. It's there, but it's not yet complete. Someone who has an idea but doesn't have all the money. Someone who has an idea but doesn't have all the connections. Someone who has an idea but just doesn't know where to. It just sometimes it's time. It's time to do it. And I had a wonderful friend of mine who always said to me, provision follows vision. Sometimes the resources you need for the things you need to do will come when you start. You've got to start. Otherwise, they're not coming. They're not coming. There's a training video I put out, and I think, Corey, you referred to it in one of the emails you were sent in. You sent to me, and I talk about how movement begets movement. That in order for you to build and grow a movement, you have to start the movement. You have to start the moving for there to be a movement. Eventually. And we might talk about that a little bit later. But here's what happens is we managed to escape the country. It's a dramatic story that sounds like it's a movie script, to be honest. Every time I think about it, I think, I don't know what drug I was on when we did that, but it happened. But we finally land up in the United States and we're safe. But there's a sense in me as we arrive in the US that the work is not finished. The goal is not accomplished. I may be safe, but that which I set out to do is not done. And it bothers me. You know, when you have a real love for something, it's when you can no longer find peace yourself. It's when you can no longer find peace yourself because that thing is undone. And then you commit yourself to making sure it's done because it's more important for you than your own safety. And so whilst I was here in the US, the decision then became, I must go back. Probably one of the hardest conversations I've ever had with my family was, guys, I don't know how else to explain this, but I must go back. I must go back and finish the work. So I traveled back to Zimbabwe and I arrived back home. I'd been away for 6 months at the time. And on arrival back home, I remember it clearly. It was the 1st of February, 2017. At the airport, I was immediately arrested as I got off the plane, put in handcuffs. I was beaten. And then I was taken off to a maximum security prison where I was held. But it felt for me, at that point, returning, even ending up in prison, it felt like mission accomplished. Now, I'll tell you why. It's because when we escaped that first time, I was called all sorts of names by people. They said, you're a coward, you're a sellout, you ran off, and I'm like, no, you don't understand what drives me. I'm being driven here by much more than some position or some title. I'm not funded to do this. I'm not paid to do this. It's purely out of the desire that this country can become something that I can be proud of, that my children can be proud of, and that a generation that is coming after us can be proud of. That's why I started this. And so coming back and ending up in maximum security prison, there was some pain involved, but I'll be honest with you, there was a sense of victory even in that, that yes, I've taken the step, I've survived it, and now we're going to take the next step to go. And of course, we then carried on. It was 3.5 years after that or more. I was arrested another seven times after that. But we carried on doing the work. At some points, we were even organizing from prison itself, for the movement to keep going. And that's the story. That's how excited I was about it. And eventually, we were able to contribute significantly to the removal of the dictator in Zimbabwe and for Zimbabwe to have a hope for a better future. Now, things are not exactly the way we wanted them to be in Zimbabwe, but we have a reference point. And I want to close this little bit of telling you this story by saying that sometimes we do things not so much because we are going to be the ultimate solution, but we do them so that there is a reference point, so that there's a starting point for people in the future to take the work that we started further than we have. The story has to have a place where someone says, I remember a lady who started dishing out blankets for the homeless in my community. I remember a young girl who said, you know what, why don't we put together lunch packets for other kids who come to the school without food? There's got to be a reference point. And that reference point is what will spur the next person to take that work even further.
I think, I know we're not on record, but Evan, I know like our grantees from the 8-year-old to the 80-year-old being that starting point, that remembrance for others and the future generations, right? It's something that will call to them. And I know that choosing love and choosing to live a life of courage will speak to so many, right? Especially in the times that we live in today in 2026, where everything seems so heavy. The earthquake in Venezuela, my heart goes out to those people, the wars around the world. I think everyone's looking for a start, and taking that mirror, reflecting that yourself, and realizing that you are the start, right? All of us are the start, and no one's special, right? I think you started this session by saying, I'm no one special. And like, you guys are no one special. Like, I think sometimes we sit and we think that we need certain things. Like you said, we need resources, we need time, we need the people, connections, and it stops us. It gives us rigor mortis from actually following through with our dreams. And hearing you say, like, hey, you don't need those things. Just get started and it'll come, right? Like, it's having that faith. It's having faith.
It's having that faith, right? That, that statement that, and we used it a lot in when we were then building the movement, that, hey, we are the people we've been waiting for, right? No one is coming. It's us. If anyone does come, let that be our help. But we are the solution. The challenge is when people wait for help, but they don't have a hope themselves. And hope is not hope in itself. And I heard someone say this and I resonated that hope in itself is not a strategy. Hope is the byproduct of a plan, of a strategy. Hope is the byproduct of someone who says, you know what I think we can do? I think that we can feed every child in this neighborhood. You know what I think we can do? I think we can get the city council to put a speed limit on our street. And I've always spoken to people about these things that look insignificant, but avalanches are not started by something big. They started by a small nudge. A small nudge is what causes an avalanche. And so even in these things you're talking about, Corey, the earthquakes, the political situations, it's difficult because it's hard for someone who is in a tough situation sometimes to think of a solution because they're trying to think about survival, about day-to-day survival. But there are those amongst us who even in the middle of rubble will think, if we could document what's going on here, that's all I want to do. I can't do anything else but take videos and upload these to social media. I can't do anything else but take pictures. I can't do anything else but go door to door and do interviews with people and just to tell their stories. It's amazing what follows after that.
It's so amazing. And Wendy, I know you can elaborate on this, but it speaks volumes. I had the opportunity 2 or 3 years ago to house sit for Wendy in Asheville and with her dog. And I'm not sure if you're aware, there was a devastating hurricane that came through Asheville. And Asheville, if you're not familiar, is a place that you would think would not be affected by a hurricane. It's in the mountains, but it was so much devastation. And there's an area in Asheville that we're focused on, Swinona, right? And being able to record those stories, being able to share, like I'm not in Asheville, I'm not in North Carolina, but being part of a movement that chooses love and spreads that even in the midst of something so devastating, and being that spark, right? And holding that light. So I really do feel like our audience will really feel an empath with what you're saying, because it hits home. It hits home.
Well, I'm glad it does. I'm glad it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's good, but that is just, kind of just wrap up what you were saying. We went out after the hurricane and just started interviewing people to get them to share their stories, and not just about what went wrong, but how did they extend love along the way, or how did they receive love? Because we were really interested in capturing, where did spontaneous community and support happen? How do people self-organize? And then how can we replicate that moving forward? And then we just started putting, broadcasting the stories to give people hope, because when you're in the middle of something, all you hear is like, it's not there, it's not there. And so like we wanted to go out and look at, well, what actually is still here and how can we know that? So, we really support the whole thought that just allowing people to share their stories and listening to stories in itself is healing.
And I think that leads perfectly into our next question. And I know our listeners can really feel it already, but I would love to see and hear how love plays a role in both your actions and your convictions. You're definitely a man of conviction. So it would be great to just let us know, like, how does love show up, and how does it play a role in your actions day to day?
It goes without saying, and I think you guys know this better than most people, that the most powerful force in the world is love. Not because it makes us feel good, but because when true love is expressed, it can change someone's life. And the thing about love that I have found in my work, which was for me, love for my family, love for my community, love for my country. And now a lot of the work that I do is love for our world, really. It is the knowledge that if I give of myself and expect no return, and I give of myself to other people, whether it's in my strategy or time, or it is in my plan, whatever it is, it not only betters that person's life, but it sows a seed in their life to do the same for someone else. Now, I'm not responsible for whether they will follow through with it, but there's a chance that one day they may not even have to do something for someone else, but they may tell the story to someone else and inspire someone else. So in the same way that I have said before that movement begets movement, love begets love. When we act out, in fact, let me maybe give you, this is the definition of courage, because I speak a lot on courage based on the work that we did. And I say to people that courage is the decision to act for the things you care about the most. Now, I think that love is rooted in the same kind of definition, that love is the decision to act for the things and for people that we care about the most. That's what love is, right? And so that for me played a role, because when things got tough, I had to go back to the original force that got me to start. When I felt unrecognized and wanted to quit, because those moments will come, by the way, I went back to the original force. It was, I love my nation. I love these people. I love my people. I love my children. So I go back to that. And then I come back to this hard moment where I'm in, and I persevere. When I feel I'm going broke, I'm spending my own money for this, and it starts to feel unfair on me, because it will. I don't, you know what I don't want to do? I don't want to sit here and say to your listeners that you're going to feel motivated every day, all the time. And it's going to be an amazing feeling every day, all the time. It's not how it works. There will be days where you will sit back and ask yourself, why on God's green earth did I start this? Why did I involve myself in this mess? Because it's eating at me. It's taking my time. It's taking my resources. And now it's because there are some people that oppose what I'm doing, because opposition comes to love. Where you show true love to change some people's lives, there will be opposition.
Right.
And the easiest thing to do is to turn around and say to people, I didn't ask for this. No one is paying me to do it. So you guys can go and throw it off a cliff because I'm walking away. I don't need this. Right? But the beauty about doing it from a place of love, which is I'm giving of myself for the benefit of other people without expecting anything in return. The beauty of it is that when those hard times come, when those moments of opposition come, when those moments of feeling weak and tired come, you go back to that original sense of I'm not doing this for recognition. I'm not doing this for payment, but I'm doing this because I really love people. I really love my community. And when I've truly come to the end of what I can do for this project, I'll walk away knowing that I gave it my best and I gave it my everything from my heart. I'm always going to walk away a winner.
And I so love that. And I think there's a piece that we don't talk about enough. At least this is how I feel. I'm curious about your perspective on this. Is that, it looks wonderful, like, where you're giving and it's hard and, you're making changes and so much of you is going out into the world. And although you're not getting money, there is something that does come. There's another reason why you do it. Or maybe it's a byproduct, might not be the reason. But I don't know about for you, but when I do it, even when it's hard, there's a pure joy that I experience personally because I'm living into my values. I'm living into the love. I'm using my life in a way that feels like I'm called to do, and it benefits.
Mm-hmm.
What I get out of it is this peace, this contentment, this joy, even in the hardest of times. When I feel like quitting, I can always say to myself, I'm standing true in what I believe and I'm taking action. So I'm curious.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious about that for you. What do you get out of it that isn't money, of course?
I think it's the sense of having lived out a life that is not only spent on myself, which for me, I like to translate that to a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Usefulness beyond benefiting yourself. My dad taught me this years ago. He's late now, but many years ago, before I became a pastor, my dad said to me, if you ever want to change the world, if you ever want to see the world changed, you have to learn to be satisfied with serving people.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is a contentment of the soul that cannot be funded by a salary, that cannot be the sense you get when you have a full belly, or the sense you get when you have some sort of reward. It's a contentment. It's an internal contentment that my life has been useful beyond myself.
Yeah.
And it's again, it's hard to explain, but you cannot put a dollar value to it, and it cannot come from anywhere else except allowing yourself to be useful to someone else beyond yourself. Some of the stories that we know, that we love, over the years. I think what is this story? Even though I'm African, this story has trickled down to Africa. It's the story of, is it Scrooge?
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah,
Right. The story of Scrooge,
yeah.
and how eventually there is an understanding that it's not about what I can amass for myself, because it'll never bring me the kind of joy that I think it will bring me. But in the moment that I give to someone else, or do something for someone else, or for other people, and again, I go back to the knowledge that they could never pay me back. In fact, can you graduate yourself to a place of doing something powerful for your community or for somebody else and not expecting the thanks at all? In fact, it's a bonus, and you're fine if you didn't get it.
Mhm.
It's a bonus if you get it, but if you never got it, it's a bonus. So for me, the sense of being purposeful, the sense that yes, this life has been useful beyond doing good for myself. The easiest thing is to go out and buy ourselves clothes, to go out and buy ourselves a meal, to go out and buy ourselves a car, to go out and treat ourselves. And it's great. I think there's a place for that. But something happens to us when we spend our lives for someone else, and there's a sudden sense of my life has counted for something.
Yeah. Thank you so, so much. That question's hardly ever asked. I mean, we never talk about that side of the giving. And I think you shared it beautifully, and I concur. And thank you for that. So, Corey, I know we deviated a little bit, but I had to
No,
find you were
I
thinking
think
about that.
there's so much in what you say. Every time I'm left with like an hour or two after we talk of just having to sit and reflect on everything that I've experienced. I did have something to ask you because you're in a community
Yeah.
of movers, right? So, I love like the saying we mentioned a couple times in the podcast, movement begets movement, right? So as movers, as people who chose love or choosing love daily and through our actions, right? What can we learn as movers to continue our growth as a movement?
That's a very good question. The work of growing a movement, again, is a thankless job. I like to emphasize that whenever I speak to people, whenever I train, that it's a thankless job, but it has powerful outcomes. And so in growing the movement that we are doing or the work that we are doing, I go back to where we start. One of the things I talk about a lot is that movements are born out of moments. And each of us who start something started because we had a moment. It was a moment where we either experienced injustice or a moment in which we experienced tragedy or a moment in which we saw something that even angered us, that even brought a sense of that is not right. Like I can't, that there's just, it was a moment. And so the idea then is how do I translate that moment into a movement, or how do I translate that moment into the process of looking for a solution? Because that's what movements are. Movements are a process of people coming together to find and implement a solution. That's what movements are. And so how do we then grow? The first is that we start. Number one, we start. You cannot expect a community of people anywhere on the planet to move for what you believe until you move.
Mm.
You're the first to move. And I talk about move me, not them. That's where you start. Move me, not them. Move me first, not them. They will be moved later. But at the beginning, move me, not them. And if you look at that move, it was actually fun coming up with that. Move me, not them actually spells movement. Move me, and then there's
I
the
didn't realize
the
that. I
not.
was listening to that.
Yeah, yeah. The not them NT is the last part. Move me, then NT movement, right? So move me, not them, because people will move as far as you move. In fact, they will eventually move further, but it must start with you. I'll give a good example again of how you being moved first, or you moving first, inspires other people to join, or inspires other people to start something similar, or inspires other people to commit themselves even further than you thought. So in growing a movement, you've gone from the moment that you had. This is the rage I had. This is the injustice I experienced. This is what I sensed. Or then I had a eureka moment after I experienced this injustice. This is the solution that came to mind. That was your moment, and then you began the first step. The first step maybe could have been something as simple as writing an email to somebody, to a group of people. Or it could have been to go and stand by the street corner by yourself with one placard as the beginning person. But you moved first. Move me, not them, right? You then go from there. And now the idea is how do we keep doing actions that not only highlight the problem we're facing, but actions that signal to others that your help is needed, is worthy, and your voice is powerful. And when I talk about movement begets movement, the idea is when we move, no matter how small, and I come back to something we spoke about earlier on, small actions. There's no action when you're building a movement, or there's no action when you're standing up for a cause, or when you're acting out of love. There's no action that's too small or action that's insignificant. All of them add up. All of them are important. They are stepping stones. They are, the chances to bring in new people. They are chances to be heard by other people. They are chances to learn from. So no action is too small. If you want to build a movement, don't only look for the big actions or wait until you can only do the big steps. Do the small ones because they build up to eventually becoming the big thing or becoming the sustained thing, that you're building. So growing your movement from moment where it's you in a moment to a place where you have and sometimes a movement can just be 5 people, by the way. It can just be 10 people serving a whole community. The point is you've gone from one person in a moment with an idea to more than one person now working together to move this agenda forward. And it will grow. It will grow.
That's awesome. I just imagine the journey of our grantees starting with a moment, right? And then taking that moment and making a movement in their community. And I think that resonates with so many that we touch base with and that we connect with the Let's Choose Love movement. So I really do appreciate you sharing that. I know Wendy has something for you, so I'm going to hand it off to Wendy for you.
Yeah, thank you. So as we start to wrap up this podcast, and it's been fascinating, there's so many things that I think we're going to be able to leverage from your wisdom. But I'm curious, what's next for you?
I love that question. I love that question.
Hang out in Baltimore, but you're in Baltimore right now.
Do you know why I love that question, Wendy? It's a question that I was asked on my journey of building the movement incessantly.
Oh, really?
As people watched what we were doing, they would walk up to me and they would be, Ivan, it's a pleasure to meet you. We love what you're doing. What's next?
Yeah.
What's next? And it was a difficult question for me to deal with for a long time. I'll tell you why. I never really knew what was next when we were building this movement. But I always knew what was now. because here for me was the breakthrough moment. Sometimes it's more important to know what's now, because it is when we do what's now that we then discover what's next.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't move. They don't do what they need to be doing because they don't know what's next. Because they've been told by the professionals that if you don't have a full plan, if you don't have a whole log frame worked out, then you're not serious. Then you're not going anywhere. When it comes to people who are moved by love, that's not true. It's different. Sometimes love, acting out of love, demands that you only do what's now. You will discover what's next when you commit yourself to what's now, right? So that's been the journey of my life. But I'm excited because I've discovered what's next.
Oh, you have?
Because I committed myself. Yes, I committed myself to what's now. And so part of what I've begun to do, which is the next phase and the next place that we're going, is to multiply the number of ordinary pastors who can begin to birth change in their communities by training them to understand that church is not just the 4 walls they have, and it's not just on Sunday, but it's bigger than that. That it's not just about them and their congregation, but it is about them raising people who are world changers, teaching them to have a mindset to be world changers, and maybe even start movements. That they have within their reach the capacity to churn out movement leaders for every single situation they have in their community. So we're building what's called the Nehemiah cohort. And I was very fortunate. I'm partnering with the University of Virginia, who are going to provide an academic platform. We've already created the curriculum for what we call the Nehemiah cohort or the Nehemiah Challenge. And every year we're going to train 2 cohorts of pastors, 12 pastors each, or at least upcoming ministers. And the idea is to equip them with this change mindset and to figure out a way in which their faith can become a basis for the kind of change that they need in their communities. And I'm extremely excited about that project of multiplying the process that I went through into other people's lives.
That's amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Siobhan. You're such a gift to the world and such a gift to us. And we really appreciate you spending some time with us.
And just make sure you go out, enjoy our city, have a crab cake and some Old Bay. Baltimore has lots to offer, a lot of love to offer.
Thank you. I wish there was an Orioles game on this weekend, and wish there could have been, but I think I probably was a little bit too late. Nonetheless, thank you for letting me be on your podcast, for letting me chat with you guys and just share a little bit from my learnings. It might not be perfect, but I'll tell you that it comes from a perfectly good place. And my hope is that it's usable for people who will go further than me, people who will do bigger than me, people who will change the world in ways that many of us never thought possible. And I'm glad that you guys get to inspire those people on their journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap for Love on Record. See you next time.
All right.
Let's choose love. I envision a world where love rules. I envision a world where the lines that divide us are washed away by the love.
Thanks for listening to Love on Record. If today's story inspired you, don't let it end here. Share this episode with someone who could use a little hope. Leave us a review and follow the show so you never miss another story of love in action. Everyday heroes are everywhere, and every act of kindness has the power to inspire another. Until next time, keep choosing compassion, keep choosing connection, and above all, let's choose love. We'll see you next time on Love on Record.
Heart. Well, this is the time to leave your fears behind and be who you were born to be. This is the time to let your light shine, share your gifts with your community.